Hey, Kua.
Hey, Kendra.
So we're back for episode 3.
Episode 3?
Episode 3.
Season 3?
Season 3. Time goes by fast.
It really does.
So we actually just put out our first and second episode on YouTube.
Yep.
So we have our own YouTube channel now.
And we didn't make a big deal of this last time, right?
Did.
Like, we're on YouTube now, y'all. We moving on up. We moving on up. We got some different mechanisms to get stuff out.
Yes,
so excited about that.
Definitely, for sure. So as we go into episode 3, we have a guest today, Leah Daniel.
Yes, we do. Hey, Leah.
Hey, everybody.
We have some background, like
I know,
something.
Jamil. We gotta. Okay, he got us. He got us.
Before we dive in and talk about Leah and fostering greatness and her passion for that, we'd like to dive into our hot topic.
Yes.
So, cool. You want to introduce it?
I will. I'll introduce it. This hot topic is a little, it hits close to home for a lot of my friends and a lot of my peers, millennials. We've been hit hard. We always talk about trying to do things like home ownership and starting your own business and all this. But the reality is a lot of us have to face debt and have, difficulty with debt. A major piece of debt that we have in terms of our generation comes from student loans.
Dun, dun, dun.
Ding, ding, ding. Student loans. So this article we're going to talk about today comes from Forbes, and the title is Biden Won't Extend Student Loan Relief and Confirms Student Loan Payments restart February 1st. And so the Biden administration came out just, what was this, yesterday?
Yesterday, yep.
And said that they won't extend student loan relief. Everybody's going to have to start paying back those student loans starting February 1st, 2022. The loans have been on pause for a while.
They have since the beginning of the pandemic.
Since the beginning of the pandemic. This is a while. I'm like, what's the year? What year are we in?
Going into 2022.
So this is the second year that the student loans have been on a pause. But essentially even though they're still assessing the Omicron variant that just recently resurged in the United States or, came up, they've been talking about this transition into repayment. And so starting February 1st, people got to start to empty their pockets and pay those things back. So they talked about how 41 million borrowers have benefited from the extended student loan payment pause, but they getting ready to run them checks.
Yes, they are. And I know I've received emails saying get ready to, pay your student loans back and and start resuming those payments. And I know a lot of people are nervous about it, right? I know some people have been kind of paying themselves during this time as well so that they're ready for when student loans have to be repaid and starting February 1st. But there are some options to start saving money, right?
Okay.
We'll talk about different options. So student loan refinancing, income-driven payments, or public service loan forgiveness. And I know a lot of people have been looking at that too. But I think also this is a time for us to really think about how do we revamp student loans. I obviously work in a school, and I have this conversation with our students all the time. And our students are not even educated about how student loans work in the first place.
Yeah.
Right? They ask questions about, do I have to repay this money back? How does this work? And they're just applying for applications for student loans and don't know the repercussions of that. So I think it's time for us, if this is going to be around for a while, and we have to obviously overhaul the whole student loan payment piece of it, I think it's just time for us to educate high schoolers too about how student loans work. And in addition to that, I think when you're looking at Gen Z, a lot of them are actually deferring college, right, because of student loans. So we have to also weigh how that is going to have an effect on our future.
Yeah.
Are we going to have a group of kids who are, have college degrees, or are they going the entrepreneurship route? I think this is going to be a pivotal time to see how things are going to change moving forward.
So the other piece of this article that they're talking about is student loan cancellation won't happen either. And I know a lot of people our age heard that message loud and clear during the last president's, in terms of the last election.
Right.
And that was a real big campaign initiative of Biden, who said, I'm going to cancel these loans. They said that there was hope, obviously. There was a lot of hope that there were going to be a last minute financial lifeline with student loan cancellation. However, there's no indication that that will happen. And therefore, get y'all checks ready. I keep saying that. Get your checks ready. It's back to that. And so, I think in this conversation, Leah, we're excited that you have joined us today. Last week, we talked a lot about generations and generational differences. And so the theme, I don't know if y'all have noticed, but the theme, we're really hitting on different characteristics as it relates to things that diversity, equity, and inclusion impacts and different, just themes. And so the theme this week, we wanted to talk a little bit about poverty through the lens of economics, right? Economics is a really big part of diversity, equity, and inclusion. When you think about how economics really shape how people are either successful or a lack of success dependent on your financial status. Right. And so we want to talk to you, but before we get into that theme, we want you to give us, intro a little about what you do, who you are, your story. And like we said, we're excited that you're here with us.
Well, thank you both, Kua and Kendra, for having me. I am really excited to be on this platform and to share just about some of the things that I've been working on. I know that we all have worked together on many different initiatives, but this is an opportunity now for me to speak about fostering greatness, which I'm really, really excited about. So my name is Leah Daniel, and I am the founder and executive director of Fostering Greatness, Inc., which is a nonprofit organization that assists foster care youth, young adults, and alumni, especially those of color who are either transitioning out of the foster care system or who have already transitioned out of the foster care system. Okay. So if you don't know much about foster care youth, they are one of the most vulnerable, disadvantaged, and at-risk groups of young people. They come from an environment where maybe they weren't given the appropriate skills to be successful. And the expectation, though, for them is that once they leave the foster care system, that they're these productive citizens who are adultified and had this adultification that they should know everything and do everything the right way, but that's the furthest from the truth. Okay. And instead of being young people who are thriving, they're in survival mode. And as we know, based on statistical information, that when anyone is in survival mode, they're prone to do any and everything they can do in order to just survive, which puts them at risk of, being in prison, human sex trafficking victims, prostitution, drug and alcohol abuse, just anything that will get them by because they don't have the proper tools to be the best that they can be. So the purpose of Fostering Greatness, Inc. was just to stop that. I am currently a doctoral student, so while working on my dissertation, I found that between the vital ages of like 18 and 24 years of age, that foster care youth, those were very vital moments where they were falling down to the, just, we're here. We don't have anything else to give. We're here. We need help. Right. And so most of them either had backgrounds in the juvenile justice system or either in foster care. And they're basically saying, we need help. And so I said, well, we see what age range they're in, and we can help them and assist them. So what can I do? This is very, very personal to me because I grew up in the foster care system. So I know firsthand, some of the things as far as like the barriers, the adversity that youth, especially youth of color, face while being in the foster care system, and the negative stereotypes that are placed upon you before you even get a chance to live life. So I made it my mission to just do something. And so I started out programmatically saying, okay, well, I'll mentor some youth. And because we need to see representation of success of people that look like us. I know that when I grew up in the foster care system, they had the book with David Peltzer, The Child Called Ed. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is not my story. Like, I don't know, this is a white man who went through A, B, C, and D, but I cannot relate. So it didn't do anything for me. I went to performing arts high school, so I broke the mold of what they said foster care kids would look like or would be like. I went to college, and even though I did all of these things, I still didn't have all the answers. I still found myself at 21 being homeless because nobody spoke to me about anything about what to do with this money that I had once I left the foster care system. So I did the thing that I thought was most responsible. I paid off my vehicle, took my sibling school shopping, and went to the Caribbean for 3 weeks and came back with $32 out of $10,000. Wow. My social worker didn't sit down and say, here's a financial plan. This is what will happen. Once you, leave foster care, just in case, put some money aside. I wasn't thinking. I was YOLO. You only live once. I'm 21, this big amount of money. Right. Grown up in poverty, and I was not prepared. And so 3 weeks before going to graduate school, I found that I did not have a place to live. And I found myself questioning, should I even go to graduate school? What would I do? Where would I go? But thank goodness that I had a concrete support in my time of need, which were my mentors, people who looked out for me, made sure that I had somewhere to stay, and made sure that I had employment when I came home for the summer. But the reality is a lot of foster care youth don't have those supports.
Right.
And so my purpose has just been to educate, and not only just educate, but to do something about it, you know, some type of sustainability, you know, stability for them.
Yeah.
So when the pandemic happened, there were so many foster care youth reaching out to me, and I'm like, okay, so what am I gonna do? I found myself paying out of my own personal account to get them hotel rooms, DoorDash, Uber Eats. And I was like, this is a real issue, you know, this housing. And I knew it was an issue before, but it was even more prone now. And so I had one young man call me, and he said, Miss Leah, I had to lie today at ECMC. And I said, well, what happened? He said, I had to lie and say that I was going to hurt myself because I didn't have a place to go, and I was hungry, and I didn't have anything to eat. So now he had to go, and this is something that's on his record, which will prohibit him from getting a certain type of job he may want, or again, stereotyping him. And I said, you know, what can I do in order to change that? And so then I thought about the housing aspect. There was a policy that was set in place for foster care youth up until the age of 27, where they were able to get Section 8 vouchers.
Okay.
But the policy is there, but nothing has been done.
And there's a wait list for Section 8 too.
Exactly. So what do we do for this vulnerable population? And that's where Fostering Greatness decided to build a building specifically for them, something for them. And as FUBU say, for us, by us,
Yes.
but a place where they know that it's kind of like a resource, you know, for them. On my website, it states access, opportunity, and community support. So access to things that they know that are available for them, the opportunity to obtain these things, and then community supports to assist them. Not do it for them, but do it with them to assist them to community support, so that when this resource is no longer available for them, or they've aged past that they're able to navigate in the community themselves and amongst each other. Because a lot of them don't have fairy tale endings. They can't go back to family members or things like that. So how can they build community with each other and depend on each other? So that's what's been going on right now. And I tell you, I didn't start out with all of that. You know, in 2018, I just started out, well, what can I do? What can I give back that was given to me? You know, because I feel like that this is my purpose right now. And when I was just obedient and did everything I was supposed to do, doors and windows and everything started opening, and things that I could not even imagine that I would be doing, I'm doing today. So I just wanted to share.
Oh,
listen,
yes, we always talk about we so inspired every time we have guests on, because I'm inspired, and we'll talk about how we can support you in fostering greatness towards the end of the podcast. But when you talk about access, right, and you talk about what does that look like, and we know that the system is very convoluted, and the system is, you know, has so many different layers to it. But when you talk about access, talk about a little bit more, what does that mean in terms of the age group that you're looking at? How are they getting access? How are you helping them obtain that access? What does that look like, the barriers that you're seeing? Because someone who's listening to this podcast may be a part of some of the things that they are creating those barriers for these people. So talk to us about what the access looks like in terms of economics and things like that.
Okay, so with foster care youth, people may just assume that they know certain things because they're a certain age, and they don't.
Okay.
A lot of them are really starting at the foundation, you know, of things. So even thinking about something as simple as opening up a bank account, what does that look like? How much money should you have in there? How much money should you take out and save when you have a job? All of those fundamental things. So just even having a conversation, and it's not a one size fits all, because everybody's situation is different.
Right.
You know, while they're in foster care, just like myself, I was in an independent living program. So where they assist you with saving money. Everybody's not in independent living.
Got you.
So they may have that situation. They have access access to certain scholarships if they're working on workforce development programs or if they're in college. So having access to Chafee funding, what does that look like?
Okay.
There was even money available during COVID that they had, but it was a first come, first served basis. So what does that look like? And then if they have children while they're in care, the children are also, I guess you would call them a ward of the state, which is like an orphan. Right. So are they able to get benefits for their children while being in care too? And as a ward of the state, if you go to college, you're able to get everything that's available for financial aid. Right. Now, before, I know when I went to school in 2000, that covered everything. Today, that's a different story. Gotcha. It does not cover everything.
Gotcha.
So they do have to take out student loans in order to just live. I remember when I started my doctoral journey, I ended up getting custody of my 2 younger brothers who were still in foster care, and I ended up getting them when I came back to Buffalo. They came with the clothes on their backs. I had to take out that extra student loan at UB because my paycheck alone could not support 2 teenage boys.
Wow.
You know, they'll each out a house at home. That's the first thing. But the second thing is you don't want them to feel less than. And you know, they're in school, certain clothes they want to have, you know, because kids are cruel.
Right.
And then you just want to make sure that you're giving them everything you can give them in order for them to feel sufficient. Yeah. And so just thinking about that, just having to make these adult decisions and really not even knowing, as you both said, you know, what you're getting yourself into. Right. And then almost 2 houses later of student loan debt, you're like, what did I get myself into? Right. Yeah. So just thinking about that, a lot of the youth in care, they're in these real life situations. And then let's not even talk about if their parents or whoever, you know, was the parental person who took care of them before they were in care. A lot of them use their names. They have a whole bunch of scenarios that I've run into. And I'm like, how do we get through this? Right. We go downtown to apply for benefits. They treat you like you're a dog off the street, talk to you any kind of way. And I'm like, do they even know who I am? But this is how they treat people, you know? And so it discourages an individual from even wanting to apply for food stamps, Section 8, you know, any of the subsidies that's available. But they're there for them to use them. But again, systemically and systematically, that racism that's there prohibits us from getting those things.
And stigma. I think you're talking a lot about stigma that might be associated with coming from a specific place or, you know, being a part of that larger system and relying on that system for, you know, basic care and basic needs in terms of what you're describing. And so, you know, first of all, congratulations. You are killing it. I mean, come on. She's talking about running a nonprofit. She's a PhD student and on top of that has a full-time job. In terms of the work that you're doing.
And 2 kids.
And a mother and a
mother
wife.
And a wife.
Listen.
On top of that. So we see you, and you've been doing the thing. And we'll allow you to talk a little bit more, like Kendra said, about where to find you and get more information and how our listeners could potentially support and collaborate with you in the future. But you mentioned, you talked a lot about like this reference of understanding adulthood and coming into this space where, you know, now you got all these adult responsibilities. You got to live somewhere. You got to, you know, provide for yourself and create the space for yourself. How did you, so you talked about your story and kind of how you navigated that. What lessons did you learn, I guess, in that process around, you know, finances that you're now taking and teaching to the youth that you're mentoring or helping through your nonprofit? Like, what was that transition like for you specifically?
I felt like in my 30s is really when I got a hold of things because I was exposed to just different outlets. So being involved with the Buffalo Urban League Young Professionals and being involved with the Oshai Leaders of Color and just being in these circles where there were a lot of people who knew a lot about finances and I wasn't afraid to say, I don't know that. Right. You know, can you teach me? Because I want to do better and I want to be better and I want to be able to pull those who are behind me who don't know. Okay. You know, so thinking about things like stocks and buying houses and, you know, and I'm thinking like, we should have been doing all of this. We could have pulled our money together. And I just feel like, you know, especially with people of color, we're the last to know everything. And so about time we find out anything, the resources have dried up. So, again, just in my early 30s, just really learning, because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so I wasn't able to ask the appropriate questions because, again, that was not my environment at that time. And again, still being in my 20s in survival mode, trying to make ends meet because I'm taking care of my siblings, and then trying to still do what I want to do with my life and fulfill my destiny.
Right.
It's like, how do you do all of that and navigate all of that and then think about all these other things?
Yeah.
You know, until now I have my own children. I want to be able to instill in them, you know, generational wealth, you know, and what does that look like, you know, and having access to different things that are on YouTube and on Instagram and following different influencers. So that really has helped me, you know, on that journey. And then again, seeing women, Black women who have these books that come out and really teaching you things like Patrice Washington, you know, different things like that. So saying, okay, listen, or Clever Girl Finances, where everything is free online, and you know, and the Budgetista, you know, so all of those different things that where they're saying, okay, we get it, we know that, you know, you may not know A, B, C, and D, but we're going to help you where you're at. And so I just wanted to take that same mindset.
That's awesome.
I absolutely love it. And you talk about, even earlier, talking about community and coming together and community engagement. We have so many different resources, like you just mentioned, Oshai, Buffalo Urban League, things like that. But what about those people, those youth who, we talk about access all the time, right? We talk about the digital divide. We talk about all these things. We're late to the party because, you know, we don't know about a lot of things that come up. So where do you feel as if the need is just for someone, and I think that I'm a person in the community where I like to bridge those gaps. Where do you see is the place where a lot of these people can find these resources, right? Because it's not always online. It's a lot of it is word of mouth. But if someone just doesn't know, where can, and I guess it's a personal reason why I'm asking, where can I help in terms of filling that gap and helping give people those community resources that they need?
Well, I think really just knowing about places like Fostering Greatness and really bringing access to those places. So if we have the population already and we say we're going to do these workshops, or even by me being the middle person with the foster care agencies and saying, okay, these youth are in independent living programs, what can we put together so that they can learn and that they can see people that look like them and they feel inspired and they feel motivated and they can ask you questions based on their own specific life goals or plans. So those type of things, and just providing them, putting them in the room, you know, and I think that will allow them to ask anything they want to, and you make the decision right then and there what you're able to do. So you may want to mentor some of them. You may want to send some packages for those who are in college, or just even some of them you may say, here's my email or cell phone number, and if you ever just need anything, words of encouragement or whatever. I think individually you just make your own decision based on the connection you may have to those young people that you meet.
Right. And I think about that too, because even I go back to, you know, my place of employment right now, and I think about ways that we can give back to the community. And I always say it goes beyond a food drive. It goes beyond a clothing drive. We need to understand who we're giving to. We need to, whether it's a food drive and addressing food insecurity, whether it's, okay, we have Fostering Greatness, instead of just always just giving, how about we go and we talk to the youth, we talk to people, what are their needs, what are we seeing, making sure you have that connection, because you can always serve as a resource. And I always, and I think that's just the best way to make sure that we're connecting people and thriving. I know your tagline is going from surviving to thriving, right? Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yes. I never really knew that I was in survival mode until I really started thriving. You know, when you have that stress and that anxiety that's there all the time and your life is moving so fast, you think it's normal.
Right.
And when I realized that it wasn't, and I liked how I felt when I was thriving and I was able to focus and I was relaxed and I felt accomplished, I saw the difference. And I said, I don't like the way my body feels when I'm in survival mode. I don't like the way that I think when I'm in survival mode. And then having access to those youth who were in survival mode and really understanding where their mindset was.
Right.
And the transition came for me when I felt like I had stability financially, and even just having a home to live in where I know nobody could tell me you have to leave,
Right.
where I felt safe and stable. And I would have to say when I had my own children, because I was able to give them things as far as mentally, emotionally, physically that I didn't have when I was younger, and I was able to really call the shots. And I would always say when I was younger, you know, while I was in care, I didn't have a choice or an opportunity, but as an adult, I do have a choice and an opportunity to do the things that I want to do, how I want to do them, and when I want to do them. So I'm not going to take anything less than what I want, you know? And so that's the difference. I felt while I was in care and even just growing up as a young adult, like I didn't have any power, that people were always calling the shots for me or telling me what I was going to be or what I wasn't going to be. And I always said, well, I'm going to show them. And it went from me saying I'm going to show them to just Leah, live your life and do what you want to do, you know? And so that transition again came in my early 20s when I just decided that I just wanted to live on my own terms, and I was more confident with who I was. And that was again based on being immersed in the church, you know, just people who were there who helped me feel good about myself, who saw things in me that I didn't see in myself. I had a mentor, her name is Miss Washington, and she would always say, you got it. And I was like, what is it? She was like, you got that it factor. And I didn't understand that then, but she never gave up on me. And she always stayed, you know, even when, you know, I made some decisions that I shouldn't have made. She said, okay, now you got that out of your system. Now, what are you going to do next? And is this going to help or hinder what you choose to do next? So really making me think about my decisions and not saying you're dumb, you're stupid, or you shouldn't have did that, or you're not going to be anything. She wasn't one of those people. And I think just through my life, I've just truly been blessed with people who have just sold into me. And I even think about just environment-wise. Like growing up, there was a situation where I was in a program that was specifically for foster care youth. And they had us do internships. And the one particular lady got me an internship with sand and boats. Now, anybody who knows me knows I love to keep my nails done. And I was in high school, and I was like, listen, ma'am, I don't sand boats. And she said, well, do you think you're better than the other foster care youth that are here? And I said, I'm not saying that I'm better, but I go to a whole performing arts high school. That's not what I want to do. And she looked at my independence and of me saying that I didn't want to do it like I was being defiant. And not listening. And then there was another lady that worked there, and she ended up getting me an internship at this black store called All Day Sunday in Rochester. It used to be in the bus station there. And I had the opportunity to go down every Saturday for 3 months, and I ended up doing a production with Garth Fagan and Carol Kanai called See Fashion Dance. And that was one of the most memorable things I remember. And I went to school for broadcasting and mass media. That was like the highlight of like my junior year. And I really appreciated that lady for doing that to me, because the other lady did not listen. And years later, when I went to speak in that program, that lady who tried to get me to sand boats came up to me and said she did not think that I would make it as far as I've made it because I did not listen. And I told her, no, you didn't listen. You can't just dumb us down because we're in foster care, and everybody have different dreams, goals, and aspirations. And so from that point, I just realized, you know, the system, they don't really think much of youth of color. You know what I mean? And we have to have some allies. We have to have some people there rooting for those youth that are set in place to let them know that even though those other people are around, that we're here too. You know, and to assist them. So I hold on to those stories to remember that, you know, my why and why I'm doing the work I'm doing, because it's not easy and it's discouraging sometimes because there's not a lot of money within human services or any of these things. And these systems have been set up for us not to win. We know that. So you're going against all of that and hundreds of years of different things. You know, they call it indentured servants, and you see all of this is happening. It looks like another form of slavery, you know, and you know, not adoption, but orphans, and how things came to be, and how people shipped their kids off and they thought it would be better for them, and they were on these trains and it wasn't. So it's kind of like the same situations, you know. We're just trying to change things a little bit here and there, but that's why Fostering Greatness is there, to just be a resource to let them know that you do have something specifically for this particular population, that they don't have to come there and tell their story 1,001 times, that we are there to help them with their life plans, whether it's if they want to get a job at McDonald's, they're working in the kitchen or in a corporation, whether, you know, their goal is just to be able to get up and go to school that day, you know, whatever it may be, whatever success looks like for them, we're going to assist them with that.
I listen and I hear, you're talking about a lot of different layers here. And in the D&I space, we talk about all these different intersections, right? Systems and what systems look like, and how systems really give people advantages or disadvantages in terms of how they're built and how they're structured. But one thing that you said just now that really stuck out to me was this sense of value. And oftentimes within some of these systems, and I think about like what's valued in the United States, because we talk about the different dominant values of the United States, and one of them is success oriented. One of them is achievement, being able to, I think a lot of the words around it is like pull yourself up by the bootstraps, work hard, and people have really, they have associations to these different systems. And so when you're describing this woman who said, oh, you think you're better, she put you in the specific category and box to say that you should just be, you should be grateful for anything that was given to you. But one of the things that you said earlier too was that you're meeting individuals where they're at, and you're putting value behind those connection points and the connections that you're making for these people. And I think we have to take a larger look at that, in terms of dominance, cultural dominance, what we value, what's desirable, what's undesirable, but giving people that sense of self through saying you do have choice, right? Here's a choice for you. You don't have to take just what's given to you in that way. So
and we're all emerging. A lot of times they talk about emerging leaders and emerging as an individual. I never thought that I would be working on a doctorate degree. That was not my goal. My goal, the only thing that I did when I graduated from Performing Arts High School was just to go to college. And when I went to college, I said, I just want to leave Buffalo. I'll go a little bit away, but not too far. And being in college, that opened up a whole nother world to me. And when it was time to graduate, I said, I'm not ready to go yet. So I'll get my master's, let me get my master's. And while I was getting my master's, and there were some professors that really mentored me. And one of them said, well, why don't you get your doctorate degree? And I was like, I don't know anything about getting a doctorate degree. And I went ahead some years later and was working on it. And it was one of the best decisions that I made. Stressful, but one of the best decisions because I get to become that expert. And right now I am focusing on African-American women who identify as transformational leaders and who has a history in the foster care system, and focusing on post-traumatic growth, not stress, post-traumatic growth, 6 different areas in their life that has really motivated them and pushed them beyond resiliency. So thinking about
you done gave us a sneak back on. You got to come back when you're done with that, but you got to give us at least a little sneak peek in terms of what are those 6 drivers, like what areas are you looking at within your study?
Your sense of self, spirituality, those different type of things. So things that make up you as an individual. And then if we think about the history of poverty and Black women and welfare, Black women have always been at the end of the totem pole with that. And even as a Black woman growing up in foster care, they say, oh, well, 9 times out of 10, if you have children, your kids are going to be in foster care or in the system. So just having that statistical information, but nothing about positivity, nothing about really those alumni who have graduated when we only see information up until the age of 21, but we know that we are non-traditional students. So why would they not go on into the age of 30 to see what happens? I mean, I met one young lady who had been in 64 foster homes, in New York City. And now we know that instability, she's not going to be in too many schools for too long. But yet now she's working on her doctorate degree and she's in her 30s. So they're not looking at these non-traditional stories, but yet they're still holding on. It's only 3% that graduate from college. I'm like, that's not real. That's not right. And then when we think about the makeup of the adolescent brain, and how the brain develops, the brain doesn't fully develop until the age of 27. So if you're exposed to trauma, it even takes even longer. So again, you're expecting this maturity or this adultification for these people, and you're putting it at 21 and 24, and they haven't even had the opportunity to emerge yet. So you don't have the right information. So that's why I said, okay, well, let me look at some of these women who are in these alumni groups, and I say to them, you know, why haven't you ever told your story? They said, well, Leah, nobody ever asked us. You know, and I said, well, you know, this one lady said, well, are you a former foster care youth? And I said, no, I'm an adult. I'm an alumni, a foster care alumni.
Wow.
So that's that coin phrase that I want to put out there. And feel free for other alumni to come forward and say, listen, I'm a success story.
Right.
Yes, I may have had a lot of bumps and bruises, but that's for anybody in life. That, you know, we have to normalize that. People go through things. Right. Some people's lives look different than others, but that doesn't mean anybody's value any less. So just, again, putting that out there. And I think sometimes you have to hear it to know that it's okay, and especially for them. You know, I know that I needed constant reassurance when I was growing up, because I always heard, well, you're not going to be anything. Why are you in the foster care system? What did you do?
You internalize that too.
And then you share. I mean, it was even, kids are so cruel. I don't know if y'all remember this song, but they said, yo mama on crack rock. Oh my God, I was ready to fight. You know, so those type of things. And then growing up, it's like, I'm still not prepared. My mom still was in addiction when I aged out. So how do you deal with that when you're immersed back into your family? And how do you build boundaries? How do you, because you're different, how do you submerge yourself in this family where now you're looking at them like they're dysfunctional?
Wow.
You know, so all of these things that you have facing, you know, you, little old you, what do you do?
Right. And we talk about language all the time and how words matter, right?
Yes,
and speaking truth and light and positivity into people. And I always say too, and I always talk about my faith and things like that, but when you're talking about surviving through thriving, God put you in that place to thrive.
Exactly.
So you can circle back to have fostering greatness, to speak truth and light into other people.
Right.
So it wasn't by mistake. It was by design. And I appreciate you definitely for sure.
Appreciate you.
I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I'm just curious as to what is next. I know you had talked about you know, fostering greatness being a brick and mortar, but what is next for fostering greatness? Where do you see fostering greatness thriving in 5 years from now?
Yes. So right now I'm working on a partnership with a banking institution so that we can assist with generational wealth and really assisting them with what does that look like, and even saying, are there internships available through the bank, you know, that they can work on and where they can move up even if they don't have a college degree? What does that look like? So it's very promising right now with this one bank I'm working with, and I'll be able to let you know more in 2022.
Okay.
Awesome.
But I also have a partnership with Housing Opportunities May Equal, where they assist foster care youth and young adults who are tenants. You know, what does a good tenant look like? What are the responsibilities? And if you want to own a home, what does that look like? So really explaining to them, working with them about what these two different possibilities are, and even assisting them with first month's rent and last month's rent, security deposit, things like that. So to assist them and to let them know that the programs like that are available. And then just partnering with other foster care agencies, because they do have these youth that are really hungry to learn and want to see people that look like them. So I don't mind. I go to a lot of different counties other than Erie, where we do have youth that are placed out there due to gang violence or other things where they're trying to get out of the city, but they don't have anyone that look like them, you know? And so coming out and working with them and doing different retreats and things like that. So that's what we've been doing. But again, partnership, really trying to get this brick and mortar together, because that would be the one-stop shop, you know, for the resource center and then the housing. And then looking at some partnerships with maybe Habitat for Humanity to assist some of these youth who are doing workforce development to build some homes, and then maybe they can go on to purchase those homes.
Wow.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
It's like this pipeline that you're creating.
Absolutely.
Through partnerships, obviously, but then kind of thinking about what those needs are going to look like in the future.
Yes.
So, girl, you doing it.
And then some housing on some college campuses that's year round. So we want to work on that too.
Okay.
Awesome.
Small campuses. So.
And I think, you know, for our listeners, I think it's really important to hear, because, you know, we have these different connections. We're going to put this out there and you know, get your information out there. But how can folks find you? how can people help you? Drop your website so people can know where to go.
Yes.
Donate. Is there a donate button on the website?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Yes, there is.
All right.
We have a website, www.fosteringgreatnessinc, that's inc.org. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. And you can also find me, Leah Daniel, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, email, ask somebody, tell them to Google me.
Right.
I'm available. But we recently just had a fundraising event for November, which is known as National Homelessness Awareness Month. And a lot of youth were reaching out. And so we were able to put this together in 10 days. And we were able to assist 22 youth with housing for the next 2 months for the wintertime. And as we know, Buffalo can get very, very cold in the wintertime, which is what we're known for. But just being able to assist them, that was really, really helpful. So we do have our donation link on the website, and it's through GiveBox. We do have PayPal also. So please feel free to reach out to me. My number is also 716-228-3824, and I am available. So even if there are alumni out there, youth that are in care, and they just need somebody to talk to, they want to know about some resources, they need help with some internships or just direction of what they want to do, whether college, workforce development, child care, any of those things, please send them to Fostering Greatness and to myself, because we will assist them. And if there is anyone that wants to volunteer, we are open to volunteers, to assisting us, and any other ideas that people may have that they feel that, this population would benefit from. So again, this is near and dear to me. I am an alumni also, and I'm just grateful for any and everybody that has assisted us thus far.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much
that
for
was
sharing
amazing.
your story.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
We always like to leave the people with a gem of the day. So is there anything that you want to drop on the people? I know you got
She does have her jewelry, like the gems.
Anything you want to drop?
Let's see today, because I always have a good word. But to whom much is given, much is required. And I never want to take it lightly for how blessed that I've been. And being in foster care was very, very traumatic and tumultuous. And just knowing what some of these youth are going through. And I just want people to be mindful and be kind and gracious to them, because you never know what these youth are dealing with. And some stories are very, very hard and traumatic. And I just think, like, how would I even be able to get through that? And they're getting through. So when you look at these youth that are in care, don't judge them. Just try to love on them as best as you can, how you can, in whatever way that's possible, and assist them, because we're leaving our future to them.
Right.
Once we're gone, they're here. And so, again, give what you can, and that doesn't have to be monetarily wise, but of yourself, because that's what a lot of people did for me. And I would not be where I am today if it was not for those people. So just leaving those tidbits with you.
We are so proud of you. We've been watching this journey. You've been working, you've been doing it. But I think, for Kendra and I, like we said, you're an inspiration.
Thank you.
You're somebody that we look at and see and value the work that you're doing. And so continue to do it. We'll be here supporting you.
Thanks, ladies.
We're gonna have to bring you back to talk a little bit more about those partnerships and where that leads to.
Yes.
But
please.
just we'll link your contact information in the show notes so that people can find you easily.
Okay.
And look forward to connecting with you in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you both.
Well, that is a wrap for episode 3.
Episode 3 in the books.
So have a great one.
We'll see y'all.
Bye.
Peace.